Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. My name is Mike Kirchin, and I am the Homes for Heroes Hero Outreach Coordinator. I'm getting a lot of back talk, so it's kind of strange. Thank you for joining us. This is the very first episode of Hero Talk. Each episode of Hero Talk, we interview a guest who are making a huge impact on what they have going on in their community. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Veterans Community Project co-founder Brandon, Sarah Lohr, who's the national outreach, and then Adam McBride, the director of the St. Louis Village. They got a really cool project going on down there, and what I first want to do is spend some time talking to Brandy. Brandy was able to nominate this great project to receive a Homes for Heroes grant from the Homes for Heroes Foundation. So, hey, Brandy. So I'm going to come to Brandy for the first couple questions so we can kind of get to know who Brandy is and how she came to be. So Brandy, here's the first question. Start with your background. I think you've been with Homes for Heroes for about 5 years. How did you get involved? What attracted you to the Homes for Heroes program? Tell us about your experience.
Sure. Well, I've been a residential real estate agent for over 18 years now. And when I first heard about Homes for Heroes, probably 6 or 7 years ago, it was an instant fit for me. My background is a former nurse. I used to be a postpartum nurse and take care of mothers and babies before I got into real estate. My first husband is a police officer, and recently I am a Marine mom. So I have my oldest son who's serving in the Marines. He has been serving for just over 2 years now. And so it's just been a great opportunity to give back to the community being part of Homes for Heroes.
That's awesome, Brandy. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to your son for serving. My son as well, he's in the Minnesota National Guard, and he loves it. He loves everything about it. So Brandy, how did you hear about the Veterans Community Project? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I had been seeing a few posts on Facebook, but I really wasn't sure what was going on. And then this past Christmas, we were looking for an opportunity to sponsor and provide gifts for veterans. And so a friend of mine connected me with the VCP, and a group of us adopted the Kansas City Village for Christmas, where we purchased gifts for all of the veterans living there, and 2 girls drove the gifts there and presented them. And it was just a great opportunity to support them during the holidays. And ever since then, I've just been in touch with them and seeing how I can just spread the word and support them as best I can.
That's awesome. So now, Brandy, you're a big part in nominating the Veterans Community Project to receive this Home for Heroes grant. And it's really cool. It's a good chunk of money. It's got to feel pretty good on your part. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So the St. Louis Village is not built yet. So it's in the fundraising aspect. And as soon as I heard that we could nominate a nonprofit through the Homes for Heroes Foundation, I immediately went to the website and put in for VCP. Because I am committing to sponsoring one tiny house this year, and that's $50,000. So with this grant, we're 20% of the way there. Super excited.
That's super cool. And thank you for answering those questions. I want to now talk to Brandon Mixon. He's one of the co-founders of Veterans Community Project. Brandon, can you just tell us about the project? Tell us about the mission, how it started. I read on your website it was putting one foot in front of the other. Just tell us that, and if you would, please give us a little bit of your military background and tell it how this all came to be.
About this grant. Sorry about that. I was on mute. No, really excited, guys. Really excited about this grant. Really excited to be on here talking today. With that being said, I am actually a combat vet with the 82nd Airborne out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And a little bit of my story. My story is actually kind of what led into the birth of Veterans Community Project. And then from there, the community has built it. So I'll speed up my story just a little bit. Audio good?
Audio's good, but you don't have to speed up your story. Give us everything we need to know.
Okay, so all right, I'll break it down, man.
Yeah.
born and raised in Kansas City, right? Grew up different. Everybody in my family was educators. I kind of grew up and had a learning disability, right? So I kind of felt like I never belonged. With that being said, the darn Army commercial, the Army of One, sold me, right? They're like, a family of one, an army of one, join now. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm missing that. Like, I want to experience that. What is that like? And with that being said, joined the military in 2009. When I joined the military, I was a crew chief on the Blackhawks. So anything from medevac to mechanic to taxi service to all of Afghanistan. That was my MOS. That's what I did for the military. Um, Again, when I was in the military, fell in love, man. Those are my brothers. Those are my sisters. Like for once in my life, I actually felt safe. I felt like I belonged. I felt a part of the family, and I could not even tell you. Like I even get the goosebumps now just talking about that brotherhood and what it made me feel like, right? And it was awesome. Again, this is going to be my career. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, even when I'm 100 years old, right? I mean, that was the magic of the military. With that being said, loved it so much. I actually volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan early in 2011. While serving in Afghanistan, my initial injury, actually, I fell about 2 stories. It's 2.5 stories. Landed on my left shoulder and hit my head. Didn't think anything of it. Kind of, it was driving on. That's what you do in the military. You drive on. Like, oh man, stuff happens. Just move on. With that being said, just kind of didn't feel right. Was having shoulder issues and head issues, but didn't think anything of it. From there, about 3 months later, was coming up out of a fob, and unfortunately, got some incoming on the right hand side. With that being said, the pilot dumped the collective. We went back into the fob, nailed my shoulder on the back of the pilot's seat, right? Dislocated my shoulder. From there, I was like, guys, I think there's something going on. Luckily, again, nobody was hurt other than myself with my shoulder. I said, guys, I think I need to be medevac. I need to go to the doctor or something. So they actually flew me to Bagram Airfield. Well, when I got in Bagram Airfield, the doctor's like, hey, man, we're going to have to pull you off. We need to kind of do x-rays on you and, kind of the whole nine. And I didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to the pilots or even my battle buddies that were at the remote fob in Afghanistan, right? Again, like that's my family. I didn't have a chance to tell them, like, hey, this is what's going on. From there, in Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan, they actually medevaced me to Landstuhl, Germany. Took everything that I had, medevaced me to Landstuhl, Germany. Was there with a lot of wounded, and it kind of like opened my eyes. Like, dude, like all these guys are missing legs or burn victims. It's like I can't even describe the sight to you, right? But like here, I'm walking just fine and have a little bit of a shoulder injury. But yeah, like I'm getting medevac to the same place as all these other guys that literally are on life support, and every single one of them has a doctor on them. With flying in that KC-135, landed in Afghanistan. Sorry, Landstuhl, Germany. Got off the plane. They ended up taking me right to basically a scan system. Come to find out, they found out that my brain was actually swollen from a traumatic brain injury. Also, come to find out that my C1, C2 vertebrae had been crushed, my T3 and T4 vertebrae had been crushed, and I dislocated my shoulder, which was very surprising because I was just kind of like, oh, like I can work through this, right? But the doctor came to me and said, hey, no, actually, you need extensive cognitive therapy and extensive rehabilitation with your shoulder. I actually couldn't even use my left shoulder at the time. Like I could use my hand a little bit, but I was like, oh, there's something going on more. So while I was there, the third day I was there, or actually second day, sorry, was there. The two pilots that I flew with quite often actually ended up getting shot down. One of the pilots got shot in the head. One of the pilots got shot in the hand. And met both of them at the DFACT, basically in Germany. And I started talking to them to explain that, again, in another scenario, they had some incoming on the right hand side and it hit the pilot's hand and dumped a collective. Luckily, everybody survived, right? But that's where I would say I kind of started battling with maybe survivor's guilt in a way. Yeah, like nobody died, but I felt that it was my fault that, man, if I would have saw that on the right hand side, I could have engaged a little faster. I could have done it differently, right? Like now here they're here, and now we're making our battle buddies' job harder in Afghanistan. And I kind of felt that blame. I kind of felt that guilt, right? That same day, pretty much the doctor came to me and Landstuhl and said, hey, hate to do this to you, but we actually need to evac you back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I was like, no, like I'm good to go. Like we need to go back to Afghanistan, right? And with that being said, I mean, I loved Afghanistan. It was like being in the Super Bowl, right? And going for that touchdown pass, and you catch the ball and you trip, right? And tear your hamstring, you don't get the touchdown. Like that's how I felt, right? Like it was just kind of stripped from me. And again, I loved Afghanistan. It's been one of the best night's sleep I've ever had in my life. Again, because I felt safe with my family and my battle buddies. Fast forward, they medevac me back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Get to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Um, really battled with depression. Really started battling with suicide a little bit. And I was determined. You know what? I'm going to get back up on my feet. I'm going to work through this. They're going to send me back to Afghanistan. I'm going to stay in the military. Well, at 22 years old, because that's how much, what age I was at that time, doctor came to me and said, "Hey, man, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to medically retire you." And being told that at 22 years old, that pretty much your whole, life, your career flashes before your dreams. And I was like, "No, man, I'll fight it." Couldn't fight it. Nothing I could do. Right. Um, Took the medical retirement, and went back to Kansas City. And when I came back to Kansas City, I was like, well, at least it's someplace to go, right? It's not home, but it's someplace to go, and at least I'll have a roof over my head. So I moved back in with my parents. Parents still vid me as that little boy, like, you dude, grow up. You need to go out and get a job. You need to do something with your life, and they didn't know that I was already battling with, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in Kansas. I didn't want to be back with my battle buddies. Like, that was the one thing that kept me going, that kept me on the drive, right? Well, again, a down spiral, like a lot of us, unfortunately, good or bad, right? The money from the military kind of led me down and like, well, I'm getting paid. I can just sit at home and do nothing. Well, that's when the demons kind of start getting with you. And from there, pretty much the night I was going to take my life, my wife was like, man, you need to go be with other vets, right? And it never really hit me like, okay, maybe I just want to be around other vets. So I went and did this event with the Winter Warrior Project. Met some other like-minded vets, right? Not necessarily like-minded vets as in the fact of being in a bad place, but like-minded vets as the aspect of, they wanted to be around other veterans. And when I started talking with them, I said, dude, what's making you guys so happy? And they told me about helping other veterans. And I was like, dude, that makes sense. Like, that absolutely makes sense. We need to have that mission again. From there, we stayed in contact with each other. I actually started doing heating and cooling for free for veterans, and like this home renovation stuff, etc., to try to kind of bridge that gap. Right? I felt that I was getting a paycheck from the military. I should use it, right, and do all this stuff for free, because at the end of the day, at least I can put food on my table. That was kind of my mentality, and it made me feel good. With that being said, it was Veterans Day, I believe 2015. My buddy Chris called me and said, "Hey man, do you have $100? We need to put this guy in a hotel." I was like, "Okay, but why do you need $100? Like, doesn't he qualify for VA services?" And that's when he told me that a lot of reservists, a lot of National Guard, a lot of dishonorably discharged veterans don't qualify for VA services, or in a lot of cases, no services whatsoever. That blew my mind. I'm like, you're telling me that a lot of these guys are getting out of the military and not even being viewed as a vet? And he's like, no, dude, that's very common. At that same time, yeah, I saw a gentleman on the streets, and he's sitting on a bridge, and I was like a little worried about, like, okay, is this dude gonna jump off a bridge or what's going on? But whenever I started talking with him, I think he had like one of those delayed entry program camo backpacks, right? And so I was like, oh, I remember that view of that backpack. Whenever I started talking with him, and he started telling me, how he's not having a good day, that he's a nobody, that he's worthless. And I started talking to him, I'm like, dude, are you a vet? And he's like, yeah. I was at Fort Hood, Texas. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, dude, I was at a Fort Bragg. We kind of just started more and more started talking. Then he told me, he's like, you know what, man? Like, I got kicked out of the military with a dishonorable discharge. And I'm like, how did you get kicked out with a dishonorable discharge? Like, I thought it was really hard to get kicked out with a dishonorable discharge, right? And then he started telling me that, through tour in Iraq, him and his best friend, obviously, they joined the military together. Same unit, kind of the whole nine. Through tour in Iraq, though, the convoy in front of him, the Hummer in front of him, got hit by an IED and literally saw his buddy get killed instantly, right? Really mentally messed with him. And he couldn't quite transition out of that. Came back to stateside to get mental health help. Kept drinking, drank very heavily, got a DWI on post. Well, when you get a DWI on post, they put you through what's called Army Substance Abuse Program, and they make you stop drinking, make you stop doing a lot of this stuff. Well, he wouldn't stop drinking, and they kicked him out of the military with the failure to rehabilitate, which is actually, now that I'm into the practice and helping veterans, that's very common in the military that they kick veterans out for that. Keep in mind, you're talking about a dude that served honorably and served 3 tours in Afghanistan and done a lot, very decorated soldier, now is out with a dishonorable discharge and is literally viewed as not even a soldier anymore. He can't even go to the VA to get resources. He can't even go to the DAV to get resources. Nobody looks at him as a veteran because of the scenario that he went to. His whole issue is a mental health issue. And guess what? That same guy was left on the street from us, from the community, right? Even from his battle buddies. I hate to say this, in the military, left on the street to die. Literally, it was in the process of, I found out later, in the process of wanting to commit suicide. He's literally left on the streets. And from there, I put in my mind, you know what? I'll never leave a battle buddy behind. I don't give I hate to say this word shit. If you're the biggest crap bag in the military, at the end of the day, you deserve my respect. I have your back. I'm going to do whatever I can to have your back and save your life. Because literally the way I viewed it is, all these guys that are on the streets committing suicide every single day, getting left behind, they have nobody that has their back. But why is it in Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, they literally would have ran out in the field with bullets flying and dragged any single one of us to safety and done CPR, whatever it took to save our life. But yet I'm safe. I'm comfortable sitting in my house and I'm stateside now. I don't give two shits about that guy. Like, what's wrong with us as civilians? What's wrong with us as veterans that we're not going out and having our brothers and sisters back? And that's how I really view kind of the veteran thing, right? Like, we owe it to them. With that being said, my buddy reached out to me, the one that I met through Winter Warrior Project, and said, hey, I'm thinking about creating my own nonprofit that helps any veteran. Again, that really aligned with kind of my mentality of like, I'm with you. Let's help any veteran. I don't care what your status is. I don't care what you're going through. Like, I have your back. Let's figure this out together, right? And he's like, I want to do some type of transitional housing and wraparound service program here in Kansas City. I said, dude, whatever you need, let me know. He called me up and he said, hey, dude, do you know anything about housing? And I said, well, a little bit. I'll do whatever you need. He called me back, and actually Sarah's mom is the one that came up with the idea. She's like, have you guys ever thought about tiny houses? And that's when it hit me. I said, yeah, tiny houses are like barracks lifestyle. B-huts, connexes, a lot of the stuff we lived in the military. And I was like, you know what? A lot of us struggle with that transition out of the military back into civilian life. Like, let's create something that puts a lot of us back into the best time we've ever had in our lives, back in that military mentality, back into that, again, that family, that brotherhood, right? And with that being said, created the very first tiny house with that thought process and that layout in mind. From there, we literally mortgaged our houses. I was into race cars at the time too. Sold all my race cars, literally maxed out credit cards. And that's how we started Veterans Community Project. We told a lot of people our idea and nobody believed in us. They're like, oh, that's just going to fail, whatever. But again, us being vets are like, no, we're not going to fail. We're going to make this happen. Like, we're not going to leave anybody behind. With that being said, since then, the community wrapped around us and said, you know what, we believe in your guys' mission. We're not going to ever leave vets behind too. The city wrapped around us and said, we love your mission. We believe in you and support you. And literally that was the birth of Veterans Community Project. And so that's a little bit of my story and birth of Veterans Community Project. And we'll get into, Sarah will tell you kind of like the more bits and pieces. But again, here and myself, I vow to never leave another battle buddy behind. I don't care what your scenario is. Dude, I love them. I want to be with you guys. Let's figure this out together. Like, I have your back, and that's what Veterans Community Project is about to me.
Brandon, that's I hope you guys can still hear me. Is my volume still on? I'm hoping. So can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Brandon, thank you. Seriously, thank you for telling that whole story. We wanted you to expand on your experience in the military and now what you're doing back here in the Kansas City area. Totally awesome. So the next question is, and I don't know if Sarah wants to take this or maybe we're going to have a final question for Adam, but what are the challenges that you face right now, given COVID, given fundraising? We're not doing anything in person to raise funds and have cool events with bands and stuff. What are the challenges? What are the challenges are you facing as the Veterans Community Project?
Sarah, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We got you. Yep, we got you.
No, that's a great question. And I just want to start by saying thank you to Brandy and to the Homes for Heroes Foundation. This is just a fantastic gift and is really going to kind of help kickstart things in St. Louis. And so we're so appreciative and grateful for you guys jumping on board early. So
yeah.
in terms of challenges with COVID, you know, ultimately we're here to serve veterans, and that's what we're doing and will continue to do regardless of what challenges we face. I would say, you know, one of the bigger challenges, I think, as an organization, because we are so community oriented, and rely so heavily on the community to help us, you know, build and, you know, be involved in interacting with our veterans. And, you know, we always have volunteers on site at the Village in Kansas City. And then, of course, once we start building in St. Louis. And unfortunately, those opportunities have been a little bit more limited for us because of COVID. We're coming up with some really creative ways to help and to continue to get people involved. You know, we've started doing what we call mission briefs, which is you know, companies and folks who are interested in becoming involved in Veterans Community Project. We actually provide like an hour-long briefing. It's, you know, a few members from our team will get on the call and do an overview of the organization. We'll do a virtual tour of the Village in Kansas City, and that's been pretty successful. We've done quite a few of those, and it's a great way to still, you know, be able to communicate with our folks. You know, we're starting to allow some folks back with some limited volunteer opportunities in Kansas City, you know, that are obviously COVID safe. And, you know, we always just encourage people, kind of the easiest thing you can do, especially in St. Louis right now, because we're not building yet. And we are just starting to kind of get things off the ground, is to, you know, the best thing you can do right now is just tell your friends and neighbors about us. We want to spread the word. We want, you know, when we started this thing in Kansas City, it was all about getting out in the community at different events and bringing our tiny house and sharing our story that way. And it's a little bit difficult to do that right now. So, you know, I just encourage people to, you know, like us on Facebook. We keep that very updated with activities going on, share stuff, check out our website, veteranscommunityproject.org, and just, you know, again, tell your friends and family about the organization and kind of who we are and what we do. And, you know, we want to kind of generate that network of support for when we are ready to line up the volunteers and get people out to the property and help us build that village. So I would say probably that's been one of our biggest challenges, because that is such a big part of who we are.
Nick, you mind to add to that?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, you know, pretty much up to this point, we haven't taken any federal funding. And the reason why that is it limits on who we can and can't help. So we still live off the dollar donations or 25-cent donations. That's why, again, it takes the community to build this. And so we can help those veterans. You know, if we took that federal funding, they limit on who we can and can't help. And again, we believe in saying, you know what, this is not a federal issue where a lot of people view it. It's a community issue, and we're going to figure this out. And that's why we stay, again, privately funded and don't take a lot of that federal funding. So again, it is literally up to the community to have these guys back.
Yeah. So Brandon and Sarah, let's stick with you guys here for a second, because I want to ask you just briefly, can you describe what it's like to sponsor a tiny home? If someone wanted to get involved, if they wanted to sponsor half or part or a full, how would they do that?
Sure. I can take that, Brandon.
Yeah.
That's okay. So one of the, I think, really cool opportunities that we provide at Veterans Community Project is a chance to sponsor one of the tiny houses. And for us, that's how we get the funding to actually build the village, is sell these sponsorships to these homes, because unfortunately there is a cost associated with it. While we do work really hard at creating partnerships with companies that can donate some of the material, there is still ultimately a cost. And so that sponsorship helps us, you know, helps us buy the materials, helps us build the houses, and helps us outfit the houses as well. We furnish each one of those houses with all brand new stuff. So that's, you know, everything from bed sheets and pots and pans to, you know, furniture and even appliances. And all of that belongs to the veteran when they move in. So while this is transitional housing, it is, we want to, it's sort of housing with dignity. That was really important to our founders, to create an environment that's housing with dignity, to where they feel some ownership. The veterans feel ownership of the stuff inside. So they're going to take care of it. And then they get to actually take all of that with them when they move to permanent housing. So they can take everything, even the appliances if they need to. And then we will restock all that when they move on, when the next veteran moves in. So, the sponsorships are critical, in the success of building the village. And what we do is we recognize those house sponsors on a plaque outside of the house. We have these really nice plaques that are kind of mounted on a stand that sit out front of the tiny houses, and folks put a lot of variety of different things on their sponsor plaque, in honor of or sponsored by. So it's kind of a cool way for us to be able to recognize the people who have worked really hard to fundraise to make this happen. So
that's Sarah. Thank you for describing that, and thank you. I'm looking at his backdrop there, so he's got his cool military stuff. I got behind me too the Wall of Shame or the Wall of Fame, however you want to look at it. It's 28 years of being on the Minneapolis Police Department. I just retired in December, but I ran a community project as well up in Minneapolis. It was called Bike Cops for Kids, and it was going for 10 years, but we relied heavily on private funding to do bike cops for kids. The city of Minneapolis and the police department didn't give us any money, but they allowed 2 cops to do it full time. And we got into the hard neighborhoods that see a lot of crime, and we connected with kids in a real positive way. Our mission was to take the good kids, put the good kids at the front of the line to receive some police attention. We have enough cops to deal with the bad kids. Let's go out and seek out the good kids. So we had a cool project. What you guys are doing down there is phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. So let me ask Adam, if Adam could join in, and maybe Adam, just give us an update on the St. Louis Village. Am I wording that question right, Adam?
Yeah, no, that's fine, Mike. Thanks for having us all. It's always tough going last behind Brandon and Sarah, so I'll do my best here. But no, I appreciate the opportunity here. So in St. Louis, we are. So do you want to kind of know location and kind of go from there? Make it short.
Sure. Yeah, take it, Adam. Whatever you want to tell us.
Yeah, so we've purchased 5 acres in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, which is a historic neighborhood on the north side of the city. So if you know the city well, we're between Grand and Fairgrounds Park, just west of where NGA West is coming in, up there as well. So right at the intersection of Grand and Aldine. And so we've got 3 blocks, 5 acres, and that's where we'll construct the 50 tiny homes, a residential community center to serve those residents and for the case managers to work out of, along with a fellowship hall and some training kind of flex rooms to have classroom style to help them along through their case management. And then on the other end, right at the intersection of Aldine and Grand, we'll have our community outreach center, much like they have there in Kansas City. And that'll serve non-resident veterans that find themselves in a place of need or in a crisis of some sort. And so that's sort of the 2 main buildings will book in with the community in the middle, kind of surrounding it and keeping everything. It's going to feel like a real neighborhood and a real community. So that's where we're going. We have the land acquired. Like Sarah had mentioned, we are in, I'll call it the red tape phase of, a development right now. We've got some back. We're still waiting on others. We'll go through the permitting process. So all this has to be wrapped up and completed clearly before we can start any construction. What our hope is, and I think is completely attainable, sometime in Q2 of this year, we hope for site clearance and utility work and that sort of pre-site development to be able to start. Rain schedules, weather permitting. Sometimes you hit hiccups, sometimes you don't in a construction project. What we really want, and I think it's aggressive, but it's the way we should be. What we really would love is to start being able to offer services and maybe pull some people in so they don't have to spend another hard St. Louis winter out on the streets again. So that's going to be the goal. We're gonna work as hard and efficiently as possible to get the project done right and get it moving forward so that we can fulfill that mission of providing services through the outreach center and then transitional housing for the residents.
Adam, that's go ahead.
No, I was gonna add to that. I'm sorry, man. I'm horrible at interrupting people. Sorry.
No, add.
No, I was gonna say what's so cool about that as well is just staying tuned. I mean, again, this is gonna be built by your guys' community, right? So make sure you stay in touch with us. You know, these houses are gonna be built by the community, so it's gonna be able to, you know, bring your son out there with you. Let's sling my hammer. Let's frame these things, and once they get framed, it's gonna be awesome because we're gonna have these opportunity days where you can come in there and sign messages on the 2x4s before we close up the walls and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways to get your company or your individual self involved with Veterans Community Project to help us build. Like, that's my favorite part because, again, you know, you get to wrap your hands around it, you get to try roof, and you get to do all this cool stuff. So I just wanted to add that to Adam only because we were talking about Village, and I love it. That's one of my favorite things to do. That's a way to get your hands on it and get involved in everything. Not just obviously donating, but obviously helping us build it and writing messages and literally showing the vets, hey, we're here for you. We're building you the home.
And that's a cool story. And it reminds me of back when my wife's company, Hanson Builders, took us down to Ensenada, Mexico, and we built 2 small homes for 2 families down there that were living under tarps. There were no beds or anything. And at the end of our build, after 2 days, we got to hand this family the keys to the house. And it was like the coolest experience. Everyone went around and took the set of keys and kind of said, hey, what that meant to all of us. And the last guy handed it to the family. And the family got to go in and experience that for the first time. So it's a cool feeling. So before I get back to Brandy, we're going to do another thing with Brandy real quick. Whether it be Sarah or Adam, tell us again real quick, any kind of social media sites that people can go to if they want to support you.
Sarah, you want to take that or?
Unmute. Yeah, be sure to go to our Facebook page. It's just search Veterans Community Project. That's a great place to keep up to speed with what's going on both in Kansas City and St. Louis, all of our locations. And we tell a lot of great stories about the veterans that live in our village, activities we have going on. So be sure to like us on Facebook. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. And then, of course, our website is probably the best resource, which is veteranscommunityproject.org.
Sweet. And so now if we could bring Brandy, could we get Brandy back in the mix? Brandy, I want you to show them something. You have something there down in your area. You got a special something. That, boom, wow. Right there, huh? That's a huge check.
That's huge. You know, as you're telling your story, right, about you got to give them the keys and see them do that.
Yeah.
This is huge because guess what? Something that hit me really hard when the veteran said to me is, I get my own front door.
Yeah.
I take my front door for granted every single day, and they get that. So thank you, Brandy. That is that's mind blowing. Thank you so much. That is huge. And
that is awesome. It is awesome. Thank you, Brandy. And also, just a word of advice. Mike Rowe came to town one time and surprised me with a $25,000 check for bike cops for kids. Don't try to go to the bank and endorse that and cash it. All right, I made that mistake up in Minneapolis. So, Brandy, I want to say thank you, Brandy, as a Homes for Heroes affiliate out there doing phenomenal things. And just for the people that are going to get to listen to this, I just want to shout out, if you want to learn more about Homes for Heroes and how you can save money on selling or purchasing a home, go to homesforheroes.com. If you want to know more about the Homes for Heroes Foundation that give out these grants, go to homesforheroesfoundation.org. It's a great way. We have Homes for Heroes affiliates around the country that are bringing forth groups like the Veterans Community Project and bringing a spotlight to them. And we need to do that because you guys are doing such phenomenal work down there. So Brandy and Sarah and Adam, thank you for everything that you're doing down there. Brandy, thank you. And like I said, if you want to watch more of the Homes for Heroes social media, we're going to do more of these Hero Talk shows. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know you guys. And just thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Brandy, thank you. And Mike, thanks for hosting.
Yeah, you bet. All right. We'll definitely stay in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.